I've got 3 ticks, and I've got a thing that says you are live.
So does that mean we're live?
I think it means we're live. I'm not overly worried about us checking. I'm willing to go out on a limb and say it's fine.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah, I feel like it makes us looks like amateur hour when we sit there and look at YouTube and Twitter and Facebook to see if it's live.
Yeah, we got to be better at hiding that.
Yeah, which this is not that. Not even close.
How you doing, buddy? You all right?
I'm bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll today.
So today I've had a few little videos up this week, and I've been alluding to the fact that we were going to be talking about fasting this week, and I'm hoping you're carrying some of this from me, Hugh, because I think you know a bit more than I do about this.
Oh God, pressure. Yeah, okay.
But before we get into that, without giving away some of the content of what we will be talking about, how was your week?
Yeah, it was good. So I mean, I'm not going to give away. So I did something a little different on the fasting front on Monday, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, which did impact a couple of my days. But after that, I largely had a pretty decent week. Off topic, I went on a bit of a spend, which is rare for me. I don't tend to
spend money.
Exactly. And I got myself some little treats to keep myself busy during lockdown. And I like to try and buy things that are more meaningful, that I can do things with. So I bought some juggling balls, a frisbee, and inspired off The Last Dance from Netflix, I went and bought a basketball and a pump because I've not played basketball for so long. Probably last time might have been when I beat you 1-on-1. Maybe I played after that, but that was fairly recent.
I wouldn't say that was recent. Did we actually play 1-on-1 properly?
We did, yeah. I mean, we can talk about it, but I thought you might want to just skip on past that.
I'm not remembering this. I'm more interested in the bits that you bought, and I'm just curious. Yeah, the juggling, and did you get a hacky sack as well?
No, like the juggling balls are like mini bee bags. So I don't know what a hacky sack if that is the same thing or not. But
it just sounds like you're getting ready to head off to the dorms and play hacky sack in between classes with the frisbee.
Yeah, hands up, you got me busted. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, mate, everybody at Arizona State, Hugh's on his way. Kager at his dorm.
Look out, mate.
No, that sounds good.
You know what, honestly, right? Because I kind of bought this bag, and I've always thought it's one of these things in my head. I'd love to just juggle, but I want to do it in the typical Hugh fashion, at least 4 balls, which means that I'm slightly better than normal. That's what I strive for in almost everything in my life. I want to try and do something that's a little bit different. So a lot of people can do 3 balls. I could, string a couple together of 3, but that's about it. So I want to get better at 3 and work up to 4. And I bought a 5-ball set and maybe up to 5 eventually. And the joy on Lou's face when she got those balls out, and I just showed her basically my instruction was start with 2 in one hand and 1 in the other, and just go from there. And she strung together maybe 4 or 5, and she lit up. Like, she was just started laughing, going, I could juggle. And then I was like, for that alone, it was worth the purchase price. So we've been messing around a little bit this week, like juggling and practicing little tricks and stuff. So yeah, it's been, work's been great, but that was one of the highlights as well. I've really enjoyed messing around with that stuff.
That's really interesting because I know that at juggling 3, I think most people could pick up. I think it's getting that 4th one in where it gets, next level. And the nice thing about activities like that is it does help your brain. It does help sort of engage you in different areas, the hand-eye coordination.
Definitely,
especially if you're home and you're looking for things to do to better yourself outside of just say reading, learning, or playing the PlayStation.
Well, I try and move. What I try to do is move every 30 minutes. I don't do that because I forget to put my alarm on, and I'm sat there for an hour and a half. My ass hurts. I'm like, oh shit, I need to move. So I've got a pull-up bar which I hang. I walk up and down the house a little bit because I'm in a bungalow and it's all flat around here anyway. So I do some stretching now and again. This was just a nice little. Now I could just juggle for a couple of minutes, and mate, I maybe I'm out of juggling shape clearly because I get a mild sweat on doing it, and maybe I'm getting too excited and jumping up and down. But it's a nice little just break from it. Something you can just get into a flow state and practice something totally mind numbing, and you don't have to think about anything else. So that's been a big win for me.
Nice. So it sounds
How
like
about you, buddy? You had a good week.
I had a good week. We've been working in the garden. We had a barbecue this week.
Oh, nice.
We had a barbecue last night, and I was also unusual, but I was making purchases. I was spending money on things.
Tech?
Okay. So the tech I bought, I have a chameleon, and I got a new misting system. So just to make sure my chameleon was drinking, they drink off of leaves, and he was having one small nozzle. So I got this powerful 2 nozzle system and an 8-liter tub. So it'll last longer. We're going on a holiday, and he's been vitamin deficient, so I can get him more vitamins in the water. So I've purchased that, but I also got a fire pit, which it was really nice cast iron, big bowl, about, where's the camera? That big. It's got legs. And yesterday we went to this golf course. Nick didn't go, but it was sort of like a boys' day out where we played a bit of golf at a place called The Welcome, which is just outside of Stratford-on-Avon, a very hilly course, and came back straight to my place. So yesterday was very, very tiring because I cut the grass in the morning. I went straight to the golf club, played golf. By the time I got home, I had to get the barbecue out and start cooking. And the guys I was playing with rocked up. And then just as I finished eating, clean up, I had to build the actually, Simon's going to be watching this, as I think will Mark. So we have 2 new regular viewers.
Hey.
And Simon said to me, are we going to have the fire? And I said, well, we might. I have to put it together. And Simon said, oh, so it's not together. And I said, yeah. I said, if you want to help while I'm cooking, you can put it together. Simon didn't do a damn thing. I cooked the meal. Simon sat on his ass, and then I ended up having to try to put it together. Now, fairness to Simon, he did come over. He did help out because I did make a bit of a meal of it. We were trying to put it together, and it's got these legs on it, and I had it upside down. And Simon's wife was there, and I'd put the legs on, and you have the screws that go on the top, but then it's concave, and then you have to put the nut on the other side. So I'd put these legs on and just pop the screws in. I was talking. I wasn't really paying attention. People were watching me. They were waiting for an opportunity to laugh at me, which is generally what happens when people hang out with me. And Laura, which Simon's wife, said, how are you going to put those on? As soon as you move it, they're going to fall over. You know, because they were sitting on the concave thing and the screws were just in the holes. So the legs were heavy. Yeah. And I said, it's fine. I got it. I got down on my side, kind of like a dad working on the underside of a car. And then as soon as I picked up the bowl, all the legs fell off. Everybody was laughing their ass off at me. And Simon did come in to save the day. So I don't want to give him too much shit because he did help me put it together in the end. And the fire was brilliant. It was just we just sat outside into the evening about 11 o'clock. Nice fire going. We just set it up, and the logs that Simon got were brilliant. Brilliant evening. Just a good catch up with friends. It couldn't have been a more perfect day yesterday.
No, that sounds awesome. What a lovely day. You do your golf and hanging out and trying out your new fire pit and being outside in nature. What a day.
Yes. So that's what's going on with me. So why don't we kick off here? And I spoke to you about this week, Hugh. I want to start doing a few little news bits during the week because I think stories come up and I want to hear your take on it. I don't want to go too heavy in it, but I do want to bring up a few bits. And some of the things I think I mentioned to you via message. So we do talk during the week very briefly just to sort of get our ducks in a row, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there was a story this week about Donald Trump. Now, did you know Donald Trump was on Twitter?
I've heard that. Yeah, I don't follow him. I don't use Twitter personally, but yes, okay. I'm aware of that.
You do use Twitter because Bearded Philosophy is on Twitter. You use Twitter all the time.
Well, okay, that would be true for that element. I do not for Hugh.
So I just need to hydrate myself. So, I'm going to share with you what Donald Trump tweeted, and I want to get your take on. And I want you to think about this in the context of who he is, what he represents. Okay. And I will say this tweet was taken down, so I'm going to share.
I'm nervous already. Okay, let's have a look.
Oh, it's going to make.
Because I don't know this, do I? Just to be clear for all the viewers, no. We've talked about this, but I don't know what it actually says.
Okay, so let me see here. So hopefully, and by the way, stop me. I'm just going to play this. I'm just going to assume the audio is working. There will be audio straight away. So if you don't hear it, let me know. So here was what he tweeted out. It was a video thanking these people for their support.
Where's your wife, Roy? Where's your wife, Gracious. Yeah, you got it. White power. Yes, there you go. White power. You hear that?
Yes. So, what are your
he
retweeted
that he retweeted that video?
Yes. He said he thanked it was a village in Florida, I think. Of course it was in Florida. It was a village in Florida. I believe it was a village. Judging by the golf carts, because everybody gets around on golf cart down there, the older people. And he wanted to thank them for their support. Now, what I'm going to do, well, all right, I'll give you an option on this. I can share with you what his press secretary said, or I can let you comment and then share what his press secretary said.
Well, I could quickly comment that, that is, what do you say about that? I mean, even if he is a white supremacist, do you, as the leader of the free world, do you put that out there on a tweet? I mean, it seems like there's a massive mistake, or someone's tried to deliberately harm him by doing that. So
almost like somebody's hacked his Twitter.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem real. Why would he do it? It's not even that big as, I don't really understand what he was trying to get from that. What was his meaning behind that?
So I like that we did it this way, because you're probably going through the same thought process that most Americans or most people around the world did when they saw this tweet. Okay. And I think when I saw that, I thought, my first thought, and I always like to throw out these disclaimers that I don't like Donald Trump. And the first and foremost point, it's not because of his politics, it's because of his ability to do the job. So you'll hear me referencing, he would have, there are people in jobs in middle management at McDonald's that would be fired for less than what he did.
Yeah.
And that, to me, if you can't hold a job at McDonald's, you probably shouldn't be the president of the United States, or much less a senator or whatever. But putting that aside, my first reaction, with all of that being said, so I have biases, is, oh, he did it again. Oh, another one, which I found an interesting thing to fall back on, that this isn't the first time I've had to think about this type of rhetoric coming out of the president, no matter whether it was incidental or misconstrued or whatever the case may be. So that was my reaction. So shall we see what the press secretary said?
Let's see it.
So I found an interview on Fox News, their morning show, and I've queued it up. Now I've used somebody else's YouTube channel, and what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description. I'm not going to share their commentary, but what I want to do is I just want to share that. And actually, I'm going to hold on. I'm going to turn my screen off for a second because it's getting really warm in here. I'm going to open my window. My face is getting red.
Yeah. Okay, mate.
I'm back. I needed to get a fan on. It's really, I have this upstairs office and it's very small and it gets really warm.
It is toasty today. Yeah.
And I didn't want to have a nip slip on camera when I reached across the camera. So I just wanted to make sure I turned that off. So this is what the President Trump's press secretary said, which pretty much is what she said in her daily briefing, I guess.
Was a guy saying white supremacy. It was another woman, or white,
white power.
White power. And then the woman was yelling obscenities because she doesn't like the president at some of the guys that were in the parade down at the Villages. What's the president's response? Did he know what he was tweeting when did he accidentally tweet that?
So the president did not hear that phrase in that portion of the video. And when it was signaled to him that this was in there, he took that tweet down. But he made very clear to me that he stands with the people of the Villages, our great seniors, men and women in the Villages who support this president. He stands for them. And his point in tweeting out that video was to stand with his supporters, who are oftentimes demonized. So we didn't hear that portion. He took it down. But he does stand with the men and women of the Villages.
So, and that's Rebel HQ is the channel I got this from. I will share it for all 8 subscribers to go to her channel. She does have actually very good commentary on this, but I don't want to detract from. I want go to her channel to check it out. I don't want to pull any. I'm really struggling to get the sentence out. Don't go to me for this. Go to her for this, and I'll put the link below.
There we go.
Yeah, it said like a true orator.
Wow. So he didn't catch the white power, supposedly.
No. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, 2 distinct things is either A, he's not going through the sources. It's quite obvious that came through. So he's either not doing that and he's willy-nilly chucking stuff out there as just tweet. So you've got a reactionary president that isn't taking his time to do his due diligence. 2, he's bullshitting and he heard it and he didn't care or he didn't think or whatever. None of those are great excuses for a president. They're concerning, because if it was a 50-minute video, and I understand as well with people getting caught out with clipped and edited footage, like a 50-minute video, then there's a 2-minute thing that says something positive, but then before or after is a negative, and he may have only seen the clip. So people can get duped that way for sure. But if that was the clip that he sent out, and it was was it 19 seconds or something? I mean, it was barely
it was something like I want to say it's 17, whatever. It was less than 20 seconds. Yeah,
less than half a minute for sure. And you can't listen through that and pick that up. That's just it's concerning on a few levels. So yeah, not a great day for Donald Trump. But like you said, it's just the fact that people are, shows and actors are getting executed, left, right, and center in the media for things they're saying or not saying, and yet stuff like that is happening with the arguably the most powerful man in the world, and there's no recourse. There's nothing that's really happening as a result. I can understand why people are getting so pissed off with it. I don't think there's much you can say. There's it's embarrassing. It really is. I think for his outfit to kind of hear that. It's inept, and it's bullshitting, or it's inept, and both just aren't reasonable.
I want to point out, you have no dog in this fight. You're probably conservative, if anything, I'd say.
I don't know, man. I'm center. I think that I actually like some of the stuff that Donald Trump has said and stands for in previous, as far as business wise. Obviously not everything, but I don't lean too far to the right, and I don't lean too far to the left. I think there's a healthy balance to be had on both. So as a person, I find him quite funny at times, but I'm just glad I'd probably think of it differently if he was in charge of the country and making rules that dictated my lifestyle.
Yeah. Interesting point, because I didn't think about it. That's why I wanted to hear your view, because I didn't really think about the cancel culture element of things. And I know that if it was Joe Biden, who is his competitor in the upcoming presidential election, the president wouldn't be as charitable with the mistake of tweeting something to that degree out. But I think that's to be expected. And I think that is my view is, if you support Donald Trump, there's only 2 options here. It's a very binary piece, that he is too stupid to check. But let me cover point 1 in under a few different bits. He's either too stupid to check, he's too busy, careless, or he doesn't have the experience to necessarily think about what things are coming out of his mouth mean to the people that are following him. So he's representing a massive constituency, which cover a massive population of African Americans. Yeah, I think it's more than half of the country even. And I know that when I send an email at work to a single customer, I read it twice. The words I even wrote, it's stuff that came. I check it twice, even though I know what it says. And I just struggle with the idea that somebody in that position doesn't have the intellectual wherewithal to be able to say, before I share this out, how is this going to impact the millions of people that are following me? Because I want their support. The other thing that stands out to me is his press secretary never actually apologized for that. Never made it a point to say, I find these views vile. I don't like this. This is disgusting. Racism has no place in this society. He said, I support the village. And the person shouting white power heard he was okay with this. That's my view. The people who were shouting white power were like, yeah, president's on board. Didn't denounce it. Took the tweet down. Understandable, because that's going to give him some static. But he threw us a bit of a bone there. So we've got his support.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to standing up for some of these obvious statements, I find a lot of what is coming in the media quite cringeable. I find that people are stating them to make sure they are. I'm not convinced that people believe in what they're saying now. They're saying things because they are feeling threatened into saying it. Having said that, for the president in his position, having fucked up so badly as to send out something that racially hatred, like it's not even close, to send something out like shouting out white power. Yeah. I mean, I feel that is a case where you do have to just stand out and be a little bit more forthcoming with that. But so, I mean, I'm a kind of on the I could kind of, yes, I agree with you in this example. However, I just want to make that distinction that I actually think a lot of people do come out of, I don't believe in, X, Y. You don't need to state that. Most people should. I don't think we should be forced to be made obvious statements. But if the president of the United States is, willy-nilly chucking out videos stating something like that, he probably has to be a lot clearer, because there's a huge amount of people that are going to be angry, upset, frustrated, confused, and he probably needs to do some work. And that was probably already there anyway. And this tweet has done nothing to kind of help that. It's just kind of ingrained people's view of who he is or what he's like. So perhaps he should have come out a bit stronger, and his team should have backed him up a bit more with that. Yeah,
because I think this is something that I mentioned to you. I want to talk about it at some point, maybe even in the next couple of weeks, is cancel culture a bit, because there was recent videos out by Jenna Marbles on the YouTube platform. I don't know if you heard about this.
No, but
so she put out a video. So Jenna Marbles is one of the, I guess, and I'm an old person, same as you. And you're there, mate. You're there. Sorry, you're there. But okay, do you know who Jenna Marbles is?
Never heard of it.
So you're an old person like me.
Okay, busted.
So Jenna Marbles would be what would be called an OG YouTuber. She has 20 million followers, comedy.
Ooh, okay.
And there's a lot of people on YouTube now that are being canceled. And this is a good example of what you're talking about, but not the same as Donald Trump. So she had videos where she wore blackface in her videos, like 5-6 years ago, something like that. And she's evolved and moved on. And there's pretty much a hit squad going out to people that have done inappropriate things. So even like the TV show Scrubs had blackface. Not blackface is inappropriate, but we're growing and learning.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Little Britain had apologized, and I think it's okay if we learn that things are inappropriate now. Just say, that was a different time. I've grown. I know that's not the case. I'm going to take the videos down because they aren't appropriate anymore, and that's it. And I think people get bullied off the internet, and if I was managing somebody like that, and I think Jenna Marbles quit for reasons beyond, let's say, just being bullied. She's 20 million YouTube followers, so she's going to get bullied every day. But if there was ever any controversy and I was just getting absolutely hammered for something, just ignore it. Just keep doing your thing, and just say if you're saying the right things and you're doing the right things.
I agree with you.
I wouldn't kowtow to the constant pressure. I would just, because these things are going to go away. And if you're genuine to say, look, this happened a while ago. This is not me. I've taken the videos down. I've confirmed what my stance is. And I want you to judge me on the person I've become, not the person I was. And that would be my statement. I said, if you don't want to follow me, by all means, leave, unsubscribe. I'm more than happy with that. Judge me on my current work, stay around, whatever you want to do. But I'm still here and I'm still going to do my thing. But again,
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, but again, I'm not in that position. So I'm only speculating what I would do in that situation.
Yeah, and it is easy for us. Having 8 followers brings pressure for sure, but not to the level of 20 mil. We will be there in a few months, I'm sure. But right now, we are fortunate enough not to have that type of pressure. I believe that we should be looking more at intention and what was the
Right.
person doing behind it. I dressed up as a woman. I wore a dress. I had makeup on.
I've seen
I
it.
went out. You've seen it. I've dressed up as transvestite before the what was his name from the Rocky Horror. Does that mean that I'm that's going to come to haunt me to the extent that I'm now sexist and transphobe? No, I was dressing up as a female for fun. All the guys were. It was actually, I think, genuinely, every guy should do that because it's not only hilarious, but it just makes you feel very differently about it. It's quite an interesting experience in general. But we had a blast that night anyway. And the transvestite thing was for I was mocking, like I was trying to dress up as someone. I'm not taking the piss out of anyone, and that counts for something. I don't give a shit if someone is defended by that, because my intention isn't that at all, and it is pure, and it was being silly and trying to be different. I wasn't poking fun at anyone, and by all means dress up as a bald ginger beard guy wearing glasses, and I'm not going to take that personally. If that puts a smile on your face, you go for it. So I wish people would look a little bit more at that, but perhaps this is something we should have a good chat about, Sean.
Yeah, because I think I already see us sort of going down that road, and I see a good conversation to be had here.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that other people may want to get involved on. One other story this week, pubs and restaurants are opening, and I think hairdressers as well in England. So have you been to the pub? Opened yesterday.
No, I've not been to any. I just carry on really. My life doesn't involve those things too much, as you can see from my hairline. But I'm not a big pub. I normally do it with if friends come down, or maybe go. I'm not like a regular pub goer. I'll go for like a meal, make an evening of it perhaps. And there's not really the one here locally. I don't particularly not that much of a fan of personally, but. So has it impacted me? But I'm really pleased that things are starting to open up. And I think I might have lost you there for a minute, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. Keep going.
I'm just going to keep talking. So
keep going.
Yeah, it's just a great sign that things are moving in that direction. My sister is a hairdresser, so I heard she had quite a difficult day. I think testing all the equipment, the protective equipment. Hairdressers are going through a real transition at the moment. So my sister's feeling it firsthand. They obviously had no revenue coming in for that period, and they've had to go furloughed. She was going to close her business, but has kept it. And they've got a lot of adjusting to do. So I feel for them as an industry. They've been hit very hard. So yes, I'm pleased for them that things are getting, the ball is moving again. How about you, mate? Have you ventured out?
Not a chance. I don't think. Well, we'll see what happens. I don't see us going to the pub anytime soon. And I can't think of a worse day at any point in human history to go to a pub than yesterday. And that's the first day that people were coming back. The news was building it up. From what I understand, Purity, which I really like their beer. Actually, it's not Purity, it's Brewdog. Brewdog is trying to open up at 12:01 a.m., which if I take everything out of the equation as far as what's appropriate, what's not, I'm not going to share my view on that. Brilliant idea from a business perspective to be the first pub to open as soon as it's been made legal to open up again, 12:01 a.m. yesterday. But I wanted to raise this because it kind of goes back to the media thing that you were talking about. My wife and I were watching the news. So I say my wife, Nick and I were watching the news this morning, and the questions they were hammering on, we stopped watching the news. We're hammering to them about all of the people that had gone out and gotten absolutely wasted and were stumbling around in London, just, acting like idiots, like it was, Christmas Day or, just New Year's Eve. And the news was just hammering away questions. And I just thought to myself, I knew this was happening the second they announced pubs were opening.
What were you
This was not a surprise. And what do you want? No matter what happens, you could keep pubs closed. And that is something, you can debate whether it was appropriate or not to open up pubs. But I think it's difficult. It gives pubs a bad name because people do what people do. The messaging was clear. The mitigation in place was probably better than a lot of countries, better than the U.S. as far as the perspex dividers and the distance, the number of people in the building, outdoor situation. They've done everything they can. People will be stupid. It doesn't matter how much you try to stop people from being stupid, they will.
Yeah.
It was such a non-news story. I just wanted to vent for a very split second on this story to say how ridiculous it is to report on the news and ask those questions?
I think there's great power and satisfaction from berating and criticizing them, mate. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Let's just have a look at these scenes when we're better than them. We wouldn't do this. So let's just mock this whole behavior and feel a bit superior right now whilst we can see this is happening. Well, like you said, it's not, of course that was going to happen. I mean, there are people that, you know, what would you have done pre-lockdown? There are people, whether you like it or not, they go to the pub every single day and without fail every week. And all they want is that Friday night. Because I used to be one of them in my 20s and I've been around enough of them that still do it now. So, of course, there are people that would go crazy. That's, no brainer. I'm glad the industry is starting to make strides, more so for hairdressers and other contacts. Pubs, I like the more kind of restauranty stroke pubs, and I'm glad they're opening up and putting their, you know, pubs is a broad word. So restaurants, I'm really happy that they're going back, and pubs for those people that need them and taking the steps. But yeah, that's not a surprise at all. Yeah.
Well, I think from my perspective, I'm going to let things die down before I even consider venturing out to a pub. And if I do, it's going to be outdoors, which I do. You know, Nick and I like to go out to restaurants and pubs and just occasionally, more so for a meal out and then have a drink. And I think we're just going to sit tight for a little while, maybe even wait out the year. We'll see what happens. But the other thing I just wanted to mention is it does seem the government here that's in charge does seem a bit naive in some ways, because every time they release a restriction, they act surprised that people are gathering on beaches in numbers, and beforehand they say, I'm sure the British public will be responsible. No, to be fair, they can't say, the British public are stupid, we're just going to go ahead with it anyway. But it's I remember thinking, you know, when I was watching, I forget who it was Matt Hancock being interviewed, and he said, I have no doubt that the British public will be responsible and will follow social distancing. And I thought, that is the dumbest thing and to be fair, he probably, that's what he should say. But there was never a chance in hell that anybody here, sorry, I'm exaggerating now. Nobody who went to a pub behaved. Nobody.
Everybody was terrible. That would have went there and had a great experience and were responsible and of course it happened without a doubt. But of course, there are people that would just go absolutely crazy and would get, be vandalizing stuff and acting all raucous back in A&E, spreading infections everywhere. I mean, it was bound to happen.
So thank you, Hugh. I was very happy to hear your views on that. I saved this up all week to speak to you. I don't really talk to many people about things like this because I want my views to be kind of fresh out loud. So moving along. So this week, you and I have been having a bit of we've been dealing with a bit of experimentation, but I feel like I need to add more context to that. So we talked about last week. I struggle with this word for some reason.
You can do this.
Intermittent fasting. IF. I'm going to go with IF.
IF. There you go. Yeah.
Is that an actual term? If I said IF, would most people understand what that is? I'll call it fasting.
I've seen it written. I've seen the capital IF, and I in relation to dieting, and it makes sense, but maybe not just in itself.
Yeah. So I wanted to give it a go this week because I've been stuck in this 295 to 305 pound sort of range for the last couple of years. It's my happy zone, and I've calorie counted, and I do well with that. And I've done a diet program called Slimming World, which pretty much you can smash as many potatoes as you want, as much pasta, but you can't have things that are fairly sugary and I guess fatty, sugary. So things like pasta, okay, meat, okay, vegetables, okay, but anything else like crisps or anything fried is a no-go. Mm-hmm. Like mayonnaise, definitely no-go. Nothing overly fatty. But I wanted to give this fasting a try because I know you've done this. And to what degree have you done fasting, or am I overselling your experience with intermittent fasting?
Quite possibly. But I've intermittent fasted for probably. I mean, it must be around 8 years.
So
Might
no.
be 7, might be 9. I've been doing it for a while, and I mean, I would stick to it. There'd only be a handful of days a year I wouldn't stick to it. So that means I'd only have about a handful of breakfasts. Otherwise, I would always skip breakfast and have my first meal around lunchtime. Yes, so I've been doing it for a while. I'm not an expert, but I have a lot of experience from it. If that, I think that's probably more accurate.
So and you knew this, I decided I was going to be very strict intermittent fasting this week, and I was very good. I was very good as far as my eating patterns, not necessarily my eating. And my goal was to not count calories.
Yeah.
But because I've maintained my weight, my diet, I think, is actually pretty good. We generally tend to be vegetarian at home, and we will have bacon occasionally. We had a barbecue last night, but we tend to not eat meat, more so for environmental reasons. My wife is fairly environmentally aware, and I am as well, but more so because she is. It's not something I would have even thought of. We even got a bit of static last night from Mark, who may be watching this, about our HP sauce, our brown sauce, being in glass. It should have been in plastic, but we go glass bottles as much as we can for the environment.
Good for you.
So I wanted to see what would happen just fasting, because I hadn't been really dieting, and it was interesting. So I'm going to start with my first weigh-in. Boom. There we go. Graphic. Right. So Monday, I was 298.6 pounds.
And this is in the morning. First thing, is it?
So when I weighed in, I had a few prerequisites. If you have children, please make sure they're out of the room. I had my 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and I wouldn't weigh in until I had my morning constitutional.
With you.
And I would hold fire on my water. So I have a water bottle that I would start drinking during the day.
That's good.
So it's around 11 o'clock every day. If I hadn't had a deuce, then I would wait. So maybe between 11 and 12. But generally speaking, every morning I was on schedule. Okay. So I made sure those prerequisites are in place, and I wore the same thing, pair of pants and an Under Armour shirt. And that was what weighed in. So I tried to keep it as consistent as possible. Now, what I noticed going from the first day, so the first day was my baseline. So I stopped eating at around 7:38. And the first thing that I noted, it was easy to not snack at night because I had just a black and white rule that said don't eat. Whereas before, I could eat later on calorie counting, and you just have, I'll have a little bit. And you're like, oh, that was pretty good. I'll have one more. So you do tend to maybe go over the top a bit in the evening if you grab a snack. So
can I just offer something on that, Sean? Because I've heard someone state that 99% is hard and 100% is easy. And that when you create bright lines and have a contract with yourself, when you get very disciplined, this is what I can or cannot do, then it's actually very easy. Discipline, creates freedom in that sense. So that backs when you have these gray areas, that's when people can mess up. And when you define the lines, it actually makes life easier in some ways.
I think this area is more black and white because I lost quite a lot of weight calorie counting, and that's a very black and white thing. I have this many calories to have. However, and you probably know this, if you're calorie counting, you can just take tomorrow's calories. So you're starting to
do that, but
you can. So if you were to use MyFitnessPal, which I use, you can do it via the week, which is similar to how the 5-2 diet works, and to a certain degree, how some people do intermittent fasting is they choose when they're going to have their calories during the week. But as long as you're in deficit after the week, that's fine. So you would start to take from tomorrow's credit today. Oh, well, I want a beer. Well, that's 150 calories. Well, I'll have 150 calories less tomorrow. And then tomorrow you're like needing that 150, and you're like, no, I'll just do that tomorrow again. So day 1 is finished. So we go into day 2, 297. So just as a reminder, I was 298.
Okay.
297.5.
Yeah.
So there we go. We've lost 1.1 pounds. Tuesday morning, I struggled to get through to noon. So I'd stop. I was about 16, sometimes 17 hours, but I struggled, and I was so desperate to eat. I just smashed as much food in my face as I could at lunch. And I thought I wasn't going to lose weight the next day. So we go into the next day. 295.5. So I lost another 2 pounds. So from Wednesday, so from Monday, 298. Are you liking the special effects, by the way?
I mean, this is awesome, mate.
298.6. And I'm doing it while I'm talking. Down to 295.5.
That's noticeable, though. That's quite a lot, especially for 1 week or 3 days.
I think we got a little cocky on this day. My wife had made a amazing baked sort of ziti thing with cheese. And what I found is I was trying to get as much food in at the end of the day as I could because I knew I had 16 hours to wait. And that showed up because I gained a pound between 295 to 296. And it was a salty meal. We had a couple beers as well. So wasn't an overwhelming shock, but it happened. And then the rest of that day, it was fine. Didn't have anything to drink. Again, I was strict into the next day. We were down to 296.2. So this is Friday. So right now I'm down from 298.6 to 296.2, which I'll take that every single week. If I lose a pound, that's a good week.
Yeah.
So Saturday is a bit anomalous. And before I show you Saturday, let me explain.
It's 300, isn't it?
Yeah. So I woke up and I had quite a lot to do. So I woke up, I had my 2 cups of coffee. I was getting ready for golf, so I hit some golf balls into the net, and then I had to cut the lawn. I was quite busy. I didn't want to do the lawn, and I explained to my wife, we have a very important experiment going on here with my weight. And if I do anything to throw that out, it's going to ruin the video that I'm making today. And I want to keep that continuity. And my wife said, piss off and cut the lawn. So we have some anomalous data because of that. So the next morning, I just want to remind you where we're at.
Just to clarify, this is her Saturday. What we're about to see is Nick's fault. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
291.7.
Wow. Right. Okay.
So I think I was sweating quite a bit. And yesterday I hit some, like during the week, I'll hit golf balls almost every day into the net. But last night, so what happened yesterday, we were going to go play golf Friday night, and we didn't. And I didn't eat very well, but I was noticing, and this is key, when I got towards the end of the week, I was feeling kind of grossed out eating gross food with the limited time I had to eat.
Really?
I was not, and I had eaten. So we had my guilty pleasure is a cheese and onion sandwich, like a store-bought in a cardboard wrapper, Tesco supermarket cheese and onion sandwich. And if you're from the States, you have no idea how incredible these things are. You're not a fan, or are you a fan?
Yeah, I'll rock it.
So cheese, cream, onions, boom, magic.
Lovely.
It's just like a big mushy bit of goodness.
Yeah.
And I had that, and then we didn't have any dinner ready, and we had all this stuff for the barbecue. We had a whole lot of leftover veg, and we had loads of cheese. So I had a cheese and vegetable wrap, and I put like that seriously good mayonnaise with some sweet chili sauce on it, and it was incredible. And I had a second one, but just veg. But it was kind of comfort food. It was like me going to like a van, an outdoor sort of eating thing, and I felt like it was like having McDonald's. It wasn't that bad. I mean, I loaded it with tomatoes and onions, but it was the cheese and the mayo. And right there, that was when I noticed, like, I need to just stop eating. I felt kind of gross. And I probably only had about 800 calories, which is, I probably have about 1,000 calorie dinners. Yeah. There were 400. So, because it was mostly veg. Maybe it was 1,000 calories. So I think there was not a lot of carriage in me. So I do think the weight of your food, so if I had a big pasta meal the night before, that would be more weight in me. So I think even though I was eating high calorie, I was eating low density food. Okay. So it probably really, so at this point, when I went to golf, I went from 298. So I was half a stone if you're British. That's quite a jump. And then going into last night, I had a barbecue. I had quite a few drinks last night, and we didn't finish eating until like 11. We had cheese.
And you lost a lot of weight, which, there's usually a rebound from that as well. Yeah. So your body is looking to store.
295.5, 3 pounds lost.
Mate. Yeah.
So my baseline wasn't that bad. And I just, I'm really interested to see how week 2 goes. But the thing I've noticed is it's not that hard in the morning to wait. If you're doing 16-8, it's not that hard to wait till noon, have a couple cups of coffee, you're busy at work. Before you know it, it's noon and you can eat.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really counting calories. Now that may change where I might have to be more aware of what I'm eating, but generally speaking, it just made me feel like the food I need to get in now has to be high quality.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it had to be good for me necessarily. I still had cheese. I felt like I love cheese, and because we don't eat much meat, I feel like I'm eating more cheese than most. But I felt like, okay, because I haven't had any breakfast, I haven't had any calories, I can have some cheese with my veg, with my fruit. So I'd have like an apple, an orange or something like that. And I'd have a granola bar. And I'd feel like maybe that would have been more than I should have had if I had breakfast. But as I didn't have breakfast, I don't think that was too bad. And dinner, we generally have a lot of vegetarian stuff, roast veg with maybe some rice, something like that. We might have like a vegetarian sausage. So all in all, I felt like I really liked smacking my food into a very tight window. So that was my week with intermittent fasting. And I think I will be kicking on with it. And I will keep you updated each week on my progress. So what I might do is unveil my weight each week, because I need to be kept accountable and my knees are starting to get creaky.
Hey, let's use this podcast for that alone. That, like, if it's something you've got a goal to do that, I'm sure the 8 viewers would be nothing but supportive of that. So yeah, let's keep this up going. So you had a very interesting week because you wanted to give yourself a bit of a challenge. Yeah, off the back of the podcast, because we talked about this last Sunday on the show, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to have a normal week then, just of intermittent fasting. I thought, well, I could do some 24-hour fasts where I eat at, say, 6 p.m. and then have my tea and then don't eat again until 6 p.m. the following day. But again, that's not a massive test for me now, because I've maybe done about 8 or 10 of those. And the first time I did it, I genuinely thought I was going to I was stressing over it. But the 8th and 10th time I'd do it, I didn't even batter an eyelid about it. So 24 hours is something now that isn't really as much of a challenge for me. And I actually try to implement them, like every other week. Even I've done 2 in a week before. I actually, I think I've probably done more than 10, actually, just thinking about alone. So I've been doing them on a weekly basis for a while. So I thought I would take it up a gear and go to bed without eating at all and wake up the next day and see how that feels. And deep down, I wanted to go for 48 hours, but I've never gone to bed having an entire day of not eating before. So I thought I would just see what happens. Well,
so is this 24 hours? Sorry, just to clarify, 24 hours. And instead of having your dinner, you push through to breakfast without eating.
So to be clear, my last meal was after our call on here. I jumped on with another call with a friend and we caught up. I ate at around 6 p.m. on Sunday, and I had a light. And what didn't help me was I had a light dinner. I didn't have my usual full-out dinner. So I ate at 6 p.m., maybe gone down to 20 past 6 or something if you're being pernickety about it. Went to bed as normal. Then on Monday, I didn't eat anything for the entire Monday. And I went to bed Monday evening, anxious as hell. Like, I was starving, and I felt like your anxiety levels were heightened. And I was struggling to sleep. I thought, I'm going to get up and eat a bloody banana or something. I was like, I don't think I can do this. Because the difficulty is, if you're doing intermittent fasting and you eat at, say, 8 a.m. and you're requesting people to come on, push on till 12, you've got 4 hours in you. Your body can sustain that. It's all in your mind. So you can absolutely do that without a doubt. It's just it's 4 hours, which, like you just explained, because I went through exactly the same thing. I was worried about that the first time I did it. I was like, I'm going to pass out or something. But the reality is, it isn't too bad, and there are things like caffeine that can help you and you can get it through it. And once you've got a bit of practice of it, it becomes kind of normal and your hormones adjust, etc. Well, there's a different prospect for being very vulnerable at, you're not particularly vulnerable at 8 a.m. You're not absolutely starving. I must eat right now. I'm craving for it. But going to bed like that and knowing I'm not only not eating now, I've got to wait 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever my sleep is, until I can at least eat then. And I was like, oh my God, and I don't really want to be freaking myself out. But anyway, I went for it, and it was horrendous. I didn't sleep well. It was like very shallow sleep. I felt like I was getting up every 30 minutes, every hour. You know, I was kind of like waking up. To put it in context, just before going to bed, I was reading my book, and I was like catching my breathing, like like I was like getting short of breath. Like I could feel my anxiety building up. So for someone of my history that's had anxiety disorder, it's a bloody test, put it that way, which I'm not suggesting you should avoid it because of that. I think it's good to kind of test and push around that, but just to be mindful of that. And also, if you do plan on doing something else, I'm not an expert here. Don't follow what I'm doing. You need to build up to it. But yeah, try and make your day as low stressful as possible. Make sure things are very easy. Don't be doing anything like this if you've got a lot of work to do. You want to be sat on your ass, ideally, taking it quite steady. So I actually weirdly, mate, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I felt unbelievably relaxed. I felt like I haven't felt that relaxed getting up in a long time. It was so odd, the difference from going to bed and then waking up. And I felt okay, and spoke to Lou about it. I was like, you know, I'm really hungry. I feel weak. I feel vulnerable. Like I just felt like there wasn't much in me. If someone tried to break into the house, I'd be like, just take it all, you know, kind of like, I don't think I had much fight in me. And then at 11 o'clock, because I was saying, oh, I'm going to push on till, and I need to 6 p.m., meaning I've done a 48-hour fast, a 2-day fast. And 11 o'clock, Lou said she's going to leave the house. And that triggered something in my head. She's like, I'm going to go to coffee with my friend. I was like, oh, how long are you going for? She's like, oh, probably a few hours. And I started worrying that what happens if something happens to me and I'm on my own? And then my panic kind of thinking was going, because I was already at a heightened level. And then I'm vulnerable. And then I started talking myself into feeling a bit worried about it. And I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, what's my refeed going to be like? Should I be eating normally? And I started reading about it, and which was a bad idea, because I started looking at all the side effects and refeeding, which I don't need to read that shit. That's unhelpful for me, because I start talking myself into having everything they say to be wary of. So I was like, oh, I was working myself up. I thought, I'm gonna eat. It isn't worth it. And then as I was in the kitchen, I walked and I stumbled. I like went a bit lightheaded and I stumbled, and it was like, are you all right? I was like, I just almost went then. I'm going to eat. I'm not messing around with this. So I had a banana and a protein shake, left it like half an hour, and I was like, and she's like, am I all right leaving right now? I was like, I just don't feel good. I was like, I just want to get back to normal. I feel anxious. I feel weak. I feel vulnerable. So I just slammed in my usual dinner, which is pretty substantial, my lunch, sorry. And luckily, I had a works call to do almost straight away after. Within about 5 minutes of me finishing the plate, I had a call for an hour. So off the back of that hour, having my mind transfixed on a work call and having food in my belly, I felt absolutely fine, and I was totally fine. But I'm the type of person that almost needs to experientially go through something like that to gain confidence from it, to know I can do it again. Almost, I guarantee that if I do that again, I now know what I can eat at lunchtime and I'll be okay. So I'll probably practice going through and maybe we'll have breakfast once or twice and do it again, and maybe then have a lunch or a couple of lunches before then trying it maybe a fifth time and going through to tea, just so I could, like, it's just me and my mentality. That's what suits me. But I lost, I don't know if you've got the numbers there, Sean, but I've got them to my side if you don't have them. But
yep. So we got Monday here. Yeah,
so that was that. So I woke up probably slightly lighter on that day anyway than I was on the Sunday, because I had a lighter dinner. That was the day I didn't eat anything and went to bed on an empty stomach. Yeah. And then on go for
Tuesday,
it, Sean.
Yeah, you got it. Sorry, just updating him as I go.
So on the Tuesday, this was when I woke up fast. I could just feel it on my stomach as well. Like I definitely lost the weight. So I lost, what's that? Just over 3 pounds.
So when did you weigh in? Sorry, again.
I weigh in. I get up. I take a leak. I don't take any water in like you. I kind of have it like dehydrated. Go to the toilet and then stand on the scales immediately, and then I just record it for the day. So all of these have got dumps inside of me, but I kind of like level that out. It's just that as long as it's consistent. So I ate at It was at like a 11:30 I ate. So it was like just under 42 hours. It was like 41 and a half hours or something I fasted for. And then
That's
I
a lot
had
though, to lose. I mean, that's for
yeah.
you. So you're
I'm a
giving
lighter guy
your
as well.
yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of weight for me for one day for sure. So then I had a normal meal then in the evening. I actually had a bit of dessert as well. I didn't feel right all day. I felt I wasn't on it at all. Wednesday I woke up, I still felt like I put weight on, I could feel it, which I put a pound on, which I almost felt like I needed that, and still wasn't right on Wednesday. So I was due to train on Tuesday, but I didn't. I waited for Wednesday, and I made sure I did really light training. I just took it steady. I didn't feel right, and I ate more than I normally do to try and compensate for feeling pretty shitty. So then on Thursday and Friday, I weighed in at the same. So I then put on another, what was that, a pound and just over a pound. So really, the start of Monday, I was 193.5, and on Thursday, Friday, I was 192.9. So, you know, I'd almost put everything bar half a pound back on at that point. But then on Thursday, that day, I felt what I would class as normal. So I was thinking I was going to run through and do another 24-hour fast before this to try and, I don't know, just keep the fasting going. But I'll be honest, mate, I just thought I'm just going to stay. I didn't fancy fasting at all this week, and I'll go back into a 24-hour fast again this week. But yeah, I did the normal intermittent fasting throughout this week outside of that. But that's what I kind of tend to do. But a very interesting experience. I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot for myself mentally going through that, going to bed and just mentally getting through that. It was a great challenge. I feel quite proud of myself having done it. But, you know, I've got some work to do there because I didn't end it the way I ended it quite frantically and panicky, which I know you would know what I would have been like. You know, you see me in those states. So I wasn't in a good place when I was going through that. But as soon as I ate, it's, you know, the recovery started.
So what's your view on your challenge? Because there's going to be people listening to this, hopefully, who are going to come to the conclusion that that is your body reacting to hunger, which I think to a certain degree, I think I know what you're going to say, but I think that there's going to be some element of truth that food would have had some impact. What would you say to that? Do you think it was because you were in starvation mode, your body was sort of in fight or flight, or why, what is it you think that caused you to sort of bail at that point? I know you've hinted to it, but
it's my anxiety disorder. I would say it's 95% that. Of course I wanted to eat, but Lou even mentioned, if I hadn't even mentioned about leaving, and by the way, she was so good. She was so worried about me. She cancelled her coffee call. She was like, I'm just going to stay. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, I feel terrible. She was like, but I wanted her to, but I wasn't going to ask her to, but she said, oh, I'll keep an eye on you. So she's a superstar. And actually when I knew she was there and I had food in me, and then in the afternoon, I felt okay. So I know that physiologically, that you can go days without eating. You know, I know you probably think I'm super ripped and tight and everything, but you know, I do carry a bit of weight. You know, I do have some belly fat, not massive as a man. I keep myself pretty fit, but I know I can go a few days physically without food. It's just mentally your body adjusting to that, and your anxiety your cortisol shoots up. I found that my anxiety went up, and I was kind of half expecting that. And I wasn't sure how my body was going to react about feeding. So actually in my head, what I got into was the longer I leave it, potentially more damaging or harmful it will be for my body. And I kind of talked myself into that. Well, I'm going to be on my own. There's going to be no one here. What if my body starts spewing up and cramping and I have one thing I haven't mentioned, mate, which I was a little bit concerning. I had a bit of a strain around my heart during this time. My heart didn't feel right. My heart rate was higher than normal, and I felt like a slight strain there. Now that could have been muscular, but I was enough to kind of concern me. So when you're in a vulnerable state, I just wanted to go through that. So physically, I feel it was very challenging, but had I not had that strain, had Lou, if I knew she was going to be there, I might have just been able to pull through and get to the 48. So yeah, I think
It's
it's my head.
It's interesting because I would agree it is your head. And I think there's a caveat to this. When we're talking about me doing my 16 hours of fasting, which sounds really Mickey Mouse, really in comparison. But when you look at doing fasting, I think it very much comes down to, I think for everybody it's very specific, because if you're somebody with a very low level of body fat percentage, and this is what I've been reading this week, and I've read about this previously, I think you need to be a bit more careful, because from what I understand, you start pulling from those resources, those fat resources. And if you don't have a lot of resource, it's going to start pulling from other areas. And I think at that stage, if you were going to try something and you're a very low body fat percentage body type, you probably would want to see a doctor or speak to a doctor, or when in doubt, in all cases, speak to a doctor to making massive changes to your diet. I mean, would you agree with that? Is that going to be very dependent on your body fat percentage?
Absolutely, because it's what your body will convert to from a fuel perspective. So really, I mean, there's argument like body didn't fully adjust to taking fat anyway. I could see around my waist was unequivocally smaller. I know that. Without, I didn't measure and I didn't need to. I could see it. So it had taken fat stores, but supposedly it does take longer than 24 hours to get to that point. So I was born back 30. So and I still had visible body fat on me to use. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue for me. But I think as far as the general guidance, of course, you're right, mate. You need to be careful with these things, especially if you have diabetes or blood pressure risk is another one. You've got to be very careful with fasting.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because one of the things that and I don't know if I think I spoke to you about this briefly. When I first started to investigate this, there was a story of a gentleman by the name of, what's his name? It was Angus something or other.
Yeah. This is the guy that went a year without eating technically. Yeah.
So 382 days without eating. In 1965. So I've checked this out. Actually, I'll share what I was looking at. This is on Snopes. I wanted to use Snopes because this could very much sound like a wind-up. And I thought it was. And I did look into this, and there is literature on this study. And it was so in 1965, a grossly obese, which is quite a harsh thing to say, a grossly obese man survived without eating for 1 year and 17 days. He lived entirely off his copious body fat. Whomever wrote this is not being flattering. And ended up losing 125 kilograms. Now, as I'm mentioning this, I want to stress that this is not a healthy or safe diet for anybody. This person did this under the guidance and supervision of doctors, and I think it was more of a study into how the body would act and react. So, what did it say?
And he might not have eaten, Sean, but he also he was taking minerals and stuff, wasn't he, to make sure?
Yes. So Mr. AB began his treatment in the hospital, but he completed most of his fast at home, testing his blood glucose, his urine regularly. In response to the results of those tests, the doctors occasionally added other non-caloric supplements to his vitamin regimen, including potassium supplements and sodium supplements to correct for deficiencies. So you're not getting, I guess, a lot of vitamins, the vitamins that you're losing your vitamin intake because you're just pulling from fat stores.
Yeah.
So Mr. AB, so Angus, has never been identified publicly, though he was thanked by so that's just a bit of waffle that goes on to the end of it. And in it, just a bit of a description for anybody who may be listening, as we are now on a podcast on Apple and Spotify. Once you stop eating, your body gets its energy from the glucose in your bloodstream and liver, thanks to your last meal, which in your case wasn't very substantial. You carry a semi-permanent 0.5 to 1 kilogram of solids in your gut. The glucose from this runs out after about 8 hours. Then you start burning up a chemical called glycogen. Glycogen is simply a whole bunch of glucose molecules loosely stuck together. Again, this is from Snopes. If you do want to look that up, I would recommend, if you are going to look at this, try to maybe see where their sourcing is. It's stored in your liver and muscles. Glycogen is really easy to break down into the individual glucose molecules from which it was made. You can burn glycogen to get glucose you need for about another 36 to 48 hours. After 2 or 3 days of fasting, the majority of your energy comes from breaking down fat. The fat molecules break down into two separate chemicals. Is that glycerol, which can be converted into glucose, and fatty acids, which can be converted into other chemicals called ketones. So I guess ketosis is what you're getting into at that stage.
Yeah.
Your body, including your brain, can run on glucose and ketones until you finally run out of fat. Now, in this story, this gentleman was, as they said, grossly obese, which I think they're probably using different medical terms for grossly obese. I just don't know why I find that funny. That's what Nick would say. My wife would say, "You're grossly obese." She would, yeah. So, yeah, and I think in that case, it's just I just can't stress enough how important it is to say you need to eat, and that's not a healthy way to lose weight. However, it does add some credence that you can go 24 hours with food, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I would recommend anybody who's looking into this to just research it. Go with the way your body feels. If you have a history of eating disorders or a family that has a history of eating disorders, you need to consult a doctor. This isn't something that you just jump in and do. If you have a heart condition or any sort of pre-existing condition, again, this is a major change. Hugh, you're a physically very healthy individual. And you know what your body can do. For me, I'm a grossly obese individual. So I'm looking forward to going out to eat next year. But no, I just find it's interesting because the whole thing about eating breakfast, I think, is kind of out the window. In popular science now, I don't think there's an understanding that you need to have breakfast to. And you might know more about this. The one thing I read that I found interesting, and I noticed this happening to me during the week, is that feeling of hunger is a chemical reaction, and that chemical is called ghrelin.
Right.
And one thing that I did read, which I can attest to, is your body will learn to adapt. So Nick, so my wife Nick, she was always one to not be able to go more than a few hours without eating. And when I was intermittent fasting, and I was explaining to her about the ghrelin, she was trying to push her boundaries. So for her, she's not slight, she's quite lean. She's about 6 foot tall, but she's very slender. And for her, it's pushing it 2 hours, and she started to get comfortable, which she never thought she could do, with going longer. And what happens is you're retraining your body's chemical to trigger at specific times. And I found that I was hungry in the morning, but it wasn't like it was on the Monday when I was on the Thursday, Friday. And Saturday, when I was doing those chores and, just on coffee, I really didn't feel like I had to eat even at noon. So my body was changing its hunger patterns. Yeah. And the other thing I noticed that was really interesting, my desire to eat after 7 o'clock almost vanished by the end of the week. And when we were eating late last night, I felt kind of gross. So it is interesting. It's something I'm actually quite excited to kick on with. And I think next week I'll report back to you on my weight loss, but I'm not going to necessarily change my eating patterns. I'm just going to eat normally within my 8-hour window and see how my weight loss. Yeah. And if I need to adjust, then I will. And maybe but we'll see.
I want to make a point on that body getting used to it, because I can attest to that, because I think it was last year that I did my first 24-hour fast. And again, like, it was what I experienced this week mentally. I had, so I'd normally eat around 1 o'clock. Sometimes I'll go until 2. If I'm busy, 3, but I'm hungry at 3 if I've not eaten at that point. And I will then eat normally about 5, 6 o'clock and be done. So 1 p.m. dinner, 6 p.m. 1 p.m. lunch, 6 p.m. dinner is kind of normal for me. But the thought of then just missing that lunch, you then wake up in the morning. I was like, right, tomorrow I'm going to do it. So then I wake up and automatically I'm fighting myself, because at that point nothing's changed, but I have in my head I'm going to be waiting until 6 to eat. And that was like, oh shit, that's 9 hours or whatever it was. And you're watching the clock, you're thinking about it more. And we went for a walk, me and Lou, at about 3. I was like, I just got to get out of my head a little bit. So we went for a walk up the road. It's like a mile walk. And about 3/4 of the mile up, I said, Lou, I feel a bit weak. I don't feel great. I was like, do you mind if we just cut? I know it's me. I know it's my head. I know I'll be fine. Walking away further from home, I feel more vulnerable. I prefer just to get back, be around the house. If I need to eat or drink, it's there. And she was like, yes, you're a pain in the ass, but come on, let's go back. So we went back, and then I ate and I was fine. Now, Now I do 24-hour fast, and I've worked out in between them. I've done a workout in the morning. I carry on working all day, and I've even thought, oh, I better, 3 p.m. is when it kicks in. Okay, 2 till 4 p.m. is difficult. That's when the ghrelin kicks in and I'm hungry. It's like, oh, your body's like, come on, let's eat. But when you push past like the 5 p.m. point, you're no longer hungry. It kind of keeps coming back in little starts. So I woke up the following morning, that when I did it this week, and I wasn't hungry in the morning. I was fine. So your body does adjust to it. And just having gone through the 24-hour fast, struggling through it, and then finding it a piece of cake, I know that it is up here, and your body does adjust to it. So it's kind of like muscle memory too. There's like a hormone memory thing where the more you do it, the more your body adjusts to it, the more stronger it is, the quicker you'll get to ketosis as well as some of the benefits, and the easier you'll find it. So it's a bit of encouragement to those people that do feel healthy enough to, and strong enough to go ahead and give it a whirl, is that it does get easier. The first time you do it is the hardest. So if you just get more reps into it, then it will become more natural, and then it'll just be like nothing, like I ate it 1:30 today. It just, that if anything feels a little early for me, but I was in Sean's boat where I was a little bit nervous about that when I did it like 8 years ago.
It's interesting because I noticed that I ended up eating earlier this morning because I kind of felt like, because I ate last night till 11, I kind of threw out the whole fasting piece. Now I waited, and I think we ate at about 11:45 because I noticed I was way more hungry after I'd eaten at 11 than had I not eaten since 7.
Yeah,
which was very interesting. I was nauseously hungry. And actually, I don't know why, I've just remembered this now. I did once go, I think I did a 24-hour fast once. No, I know I did, because I did. I had dinner and I stopped eating at 8. It wasn't quite 24 hours. It was 20 hours. And I was testing the fasting thing. And I went to dinner that night, and I hadn't eaten dinner. So I'd gone about 20 hours, and I decided to go for a run. But I was going to go for a cautious run. Just like a couple miles, nothing, like I was just getting back into it. And I started running down the road, and I started to feel funny, but I think that was my mind. You start to invent what feelings are, and it's probably nothing. If you kind of look at how people were before there was stores, usually you would hunt on a few days fast because
of course
there's no supermarket. So a lot of that was in my head, but I think it's important to listen to those signals and make a determination what you think that is. And it's always good. If you don't want to see a doctor as well, you can always pay not too much money to consult a nutritionist, which is another option. If you, and I think the reason I'm mentioning this, I just want to be very clear that we're not nutritionists, we're not doctors, and we don't know anything.
Don't copy us, guys.
No.
Do your own
beards,
due diligence, find that out. I mean, one of the things that, because I want to make a point of this too, because this is what was helpful for me. You mentioned the eating disorders, which I'd say I have a very mild one, in that I am a grotesque eater. I eat massive amounts of food, and I love shoveling it in my gut. So for me, I love having 2 massive meals a day, and actually I relish the 24 hours where I get to go to town and have a 2,500 calorie meal in the evening and feel bloody brilliant about it. So for me personally, what I liked about that was, let's put this on the flip side. When I've actually gone traveling and I've had a breakfast to kind of curb the anxiety a little bit, I end up eating exactly the same lunch and exactly the same evening meal. It doesn't make me more full. It just calms me for those few hours. So for me, it does restrict my total calorie intake, which is helpful, because when I eat, it's like Pringles. Once I pop, I can't, I eat until I'm full. I don't just snack and, I go all in. So for me, I found it was really helpful to restrict that. And I kind of earned being able to feast a little bit more, be it 1 meal or 2 meals a day. So that's why it suits me personally, because I like to eat more. And actually, I prefer that than having 3 small meals where I feel like I'm holding back a little bit.
It's interesting because I find that we will wrap up here shortly. I don't want to keep going on, but it just reminded me of another thing with regard to those big meals. And it is, it is nice to eat those. For me, that's the one thing I like is having those large meals. And it reminded me of that show, Super Size versus Super Skinny. Have you ever seen that? So what they do is they take
Rings a
somebody
bell.
who is grossly obese and they
have
put them in a
seen this.
room with somebody who's grossly underweight.
And they
I'm just
swap
gonna keep it
diets
simple.
or something for a week.
So and this highlights. So the way they do the show, I don't think is accurate in reality, because they make the thin person eat the fat person's meal, except they do it in 3 meals. So for instance, they'll say, Susie is going to be having what Joe normally has, which is 7 pancakes, 2 waffles, 18 rashers of bacon, 1 pint of syrup, and 3 potatoes. Now, he probably had that morning the 6 pancakes and then came back in a half hour for a couple of waffles and then came back for whatever else. And when I look at how I would overeat, it would be sort of grazing throughout the day, which made it a bit more attainable. And those obese people are not sitting down to, a lunch of, and lunch would be something like, and Susie's going to have Joe's Subway meal with crisps, a large 2-liter of Coke with gummy bears, 3 scoops of ice cream. And it's like, no, he had the Subway. And then an hour later, he had the ice cream. So I find that having that big meal means I can eat more guilt-free, but I'm not able to stomach that much. So if I were to smash as much as I could in comfortably on a work day, I'm probably at best eating 1,000 calories. And then at dinner, same. I'm probably eating about 1,000 calories. Now, 2,000 calories for a guy that's 300 pounds is in weight loss territory. I know people are jealous who are probably in the 150 range, but I have a big body that takes a lot of energy to move around, and my deficit calorie count is going to be 2,000 calories or thereabouts. I think it's actually 2,200 for me to lose a pound a week.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to eat more than I should by having 2 big meals. I just have to make sure that I'm eating a lot of things that aren't
good things.
So yeah, instead of eating a lot of cheese, eating a lot of roast veg.
Yeah. I remember Peter Attia, what he was saying about diet, because it's a bigger conversation. We talked about maybe doing this at one point, which I think it might be worth doing in a future podcast. But it's about restricting. First of all, it's about moving away from the standard American diet, where everything's convenient, cheap. It's about transportation, keeping costs down, the things that don't spoil, like flour, sugar, all that. Moving away from that and restricting on one of the areas. One of the things you can restrict is the amount of calories that you eat. So just having less of what we were just talking about. 2, it's about decreasing the time in which the window that you can eat, such as intermittent fasting. Or 3rd, it's about reducing certain aspects of your diet, such as not eating meat, not eating carbs, or etc. Now, all those things are very useful to play around with. Intermittent fasting helps you on the time side of it, and also moves you towards the practice of fasting, which in general has a multitude of health benefits. So that's one of the reasons that I went into doing it. And it wasn't just to lose weight; it was just to kind of try that. But there's a lot of benefits that come with it. What I like about this, which we mentioned before, is it's very flexible. So you can be a vegan, you can be a carnivore, you can love all your junk food. But intermittent fasting is there. You can change your window time, you can change your diet, and just see really what works for you. And I think it's a great tool to kind of start moving away from the poor side of it, just by having less and experimenting a little bit with what works for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, and I think the NHS, the National Health Service here, and I know in the U.S., I don't know what the agency is. I know I've seen it on many official sites in the U.S. The 8-hour eating window is recommended generally in science, and it's not recommended, but it's enough.
Science is pretty strong in it. It's very. There are very few downsides to it. Not to say there aren't, that depending on health, but if you're generally of good health, decent health, then it's more than likely going to work in your favor.
Yeah. Well, mate, that was a lot of fun. I think we're getting on to the 1 hour, 20-minute time, and I think that's about the time we usually call this a week.
Okay. Yeah, it's been fun. It's an interesting topic. Something that really enjoyed doing personally. I'm glad that you've had some success from it in a couple of areas, really. Lost some weight and you're feeling good off it. So I'm interested to follow this story with yourself over the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, I thought before we wrapped up, we have one more new segment that I'm going to pretend like I didn't bounce off you already. And I was thinking of, oh yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I have no idea what you're going to mention right now.
Not
I'm sure
a
you
clue.
mentioned
Yeah.
it, I'm lost.
So I thought before we go into our next show next week, we set some goals for this week, and instead of just giving of course, we're gonna have things that we're gonna share each week, but I thought it would be good to maybe have a bit more of a point that can be followed, and I thought we should set some goals for ourselves this week, and report back to how we've gotten on with those goals. Nothing major, just a little thing that we plan to do, whether that's minimizing something or cleaning out something, or you have a personal goal you want to meet. Is there anything that you're working on this week that you think that you would?
I do a weekly review every Sunday, and where I chart my performance.
Of course you do.
The areas I'm happy with, the areas that haven't been so great, and then I look to try and implement things. For me this week, it's more on a business side of it. So I do remember you asking me this, but I haven't made it bearded philosophy friendly at all. I'm just trying to do this off the cuff, if you haven't guessed that already. But I have, I don't really want to get into, I suppose, the work side of it, because I think it's quite dull and complicated. But there are some work things that I want to look into this week, and for more of a relevant topic to what we're just talking about, I will be doing a 24-hour fast this week, and I will report back how that went. But sorry, mate. I think I've let you down a little bit this week. I will have more specific bearded philosophy goals for next week. But
I think so. That's fine, because I actually, there's two things I'm going to be doing. Well, the goal, I'm just going to keep my intermittent fasting. But are you familiar with a YouTuber by the name Wheezy Waiter?
No.
You'd really like him, actually. So he did a video, and I'm going to share. Why isn't this adding? There we go. Called the 10-minute rule. So for me, I'm a terrible procrastinator. I didn't know if this was news to you or not. I tend to be so caught up in high IQ things that, I tend to forget to do actual things. I believe there's some famous thinkers that were very much like that. I'm such an ass. But Wheezy Waiter did this. I'd recommend this video. I'll send you the link to this. He's very funny, and he does all these little challenges. So, for instance, no caffeine for a month. I went to bed at 7 p.m. every night. And he's just a really lovely guy, and he's very funny too, the way he edits his videos together. So I'll put a link in the description. I highly recommend Wheezy Waiter. And Wheezy, if you want to recommend us, please do, because I know he's probably one of our 8 subscribers. Without a doubt. And he did this thing called the 10-minute rule, where he had all these chores that he just sort of let kind of go to the wayside. And he did 10 minutes of something that he had been procrastinating on every day, just 10 minutes. To see what the outcome would be. So, for instance, his garage was in an absolute state. Sorry, garage for my friends back home. His garage was in an absolute state, or he had to do some painting in a room, or, those little things that you just sort of don't do. You look at it every day and you just sort of walk by it. And his rule was no more, no less than 10 minutes to do those things every day. And it was interesting to see what progress he actually made by just allocating 10 minutes a day to do those things.
I bet it's huge without even watching it.
So what I'll do is this will be uploaded live. I always like to pull it down and re-upload it as a recorded video, because we can do a little bit more with tagging, and I think it gets a bit more traction. So have a look at that. And anything else before we wrap up, Hugh? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about, Sean, is that me and Sean and the 8 subscribers are all loving what we're doing right now. And I just feel like I want to do more of it. I want to get better at this. I think if we've got a year of this, it will be 50 podcasts. Well, let's double it, 100, because we'll be so much better at this. And I've tried to convince Sean to go up to twice a week. And as you're probably noticing by now, Sean is doing all the handiwork here, and he's got to hold down a job. So it's a much bigger undertaking for Sean than it is to me. But he's gladly agreed to going twice a week.
I forgot all about that. I actually blanked on that.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to be looking at doing this more frequent. I believe we were going to look at doing one this week.
Thursday.
Was it Thursday to break up that week, and then Sunday as per normal. So yeah, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on the top of your head, Sean, but if not, we don't have to decide now. We can put it out to Twitter and Facebook and let everyone know what we're going to do on Thursday. Here we go.
Yes.
There we go. Look at this teamwork.
I know. So yeah, and we haven't had any suggestions yet. That may be to do with the 0 number in the top left corner. But we are. One thing I will say is we are actually getting, we are growing every week, 100%. The data is there. We're getting more views every week. We're getting more likes. We're getting subscribers growing every week. And soon we'll be in a position where I hope we have people that are in the conversation, even if, let's say, they say, the schedule needs to be changed. We're open to changing the schedule. But yeah, we need to decide what that topic's going to be. Whether we do, let's say, a Thursday is like a quick catch-up Thursday, and then Sunday's the main show, or whether we do 2 main shows, or whether we do a half-ass job on both. Whatever the customer wants, man. So yeah, we'll decide what we're doing. If you do want to start a conversation with us, by all means. So at the bottom, our Twitter and Periscope are Bearded Philoso 1. So I am going to start doing some more updates during the week because things cross my mind that we're not going to be talking about that aren't necessarily in Hugh's wheelhouse, that I just want to get my thoughts on page. Hugh, I don't know if you noticed I had a few video uploads this week.
Yes, I did see. Yeah.
So there's just times where, and I'm going to, 100%, I'm not going to be opinionated. These are more questions, and these are potential drivers for shows we're going to do in the future. But I do see the news. I do pay attention to what's going on, and I do want to get feedback from people from time to time on what they think. So I will be doing little 2-minute videos during the week, and you may decide you want to pop a few on as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things I want to do is ask you how to do that, because I don't even know how I go about that. So that's kind of part of the issue. But also, guys, we're finding our feet with this. So me and Sean don't know what we don't know. We're very much open. I hope it comes across to hear what you guys think and what you want to see, because we want to talk about it and make it engaging with you. So at the moment, we're freestyling. We're trying stuff out. If you like stuff, let us know. If you don't like stuff, let us know. We're all ears. So we're going to keep experimenting and seeing what has a fit for us and with our audience.
Yep. So just as a reminder, Twitter and Periscope is Bearded Philoso 1. You can catch us on our Facebook page at Bearded Philosophy. And I've still not done a damn thing on Instagram. So you'll see just a picture and no post whatsoever at Bearded Philoso 1.
That's a goal this week, Sean.
Boom. That is a good goal. So this week, my goal will be to start posting on Instagram. And my other goal will be to show you how to post on all platforms.
Yay.
So yeah, 100%. If you do want to just drop us a line, we are getting no traffic regularly as far as comments. So post a comment. You're probably going to get a reply within the day. We want to engage with you. If you're not happy with what we say, rinse us for it. Give it,
Absolutely.
Go at us. We're thick-skinned. So let us know what you think if you're not happy with what we're talking about. And if you want to join the conversation, feel free. So yeah, that's us for this week, Hugh. I look forward to catching up with you now on Thursday at 4:00 British summertime standard time. I never know what it is. So that'll be yet another goal of mine this week, is to find out what the actual terminology is for my time zone. And we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. Have a great week.